gonna zap this thing once and for all.
Like we're good to go on YouTube. Thanks. Dean Lives. Is that like that's like a bad horror movie where you put on the special glasses and everybody's really Dane?
Yeah. Never seen one of those. I don't watch horror films. Caleb knows this about me. I'm a sensitive boy.
That's true. You don't. I love them.
Disney Dane. That's true. I got sucked into them when I was little because my sister watched them all the time.
Disney movies?
Yeah, Disney movies.
Thanks. Speak.
I was raised on Stephen King, man.
Disney Dane.
Yeah.
I watched it when I was little. It destroyed me.
Watch what?
It.
Hmm.
Who's on first?
Some more what?
So guys, we're just gonna, have a little banter here for a few minutes while folks are coming in. For those of you who are regulars, this is par for the course. Just a little bit of chit chat. Bear with us. Get involved.
Favorite
to
Disney.
Contribute.
Favorite Disney movie. Favorite movie for me, period, is E.T.
Oh my God, favorite Disney movie. Yowza. So when I was a kid, favorite Disney movies, definitely Robin Hood was in there with the fox.
That's a good one. That one's solid.
Yeah, I think that was like as a kid, right? It's the first one that comes to mind. Now what is it? My daughter is like watching and just floats back and forth between Encanto and Moana.
Yeah,
right?
my daughter too. That's funny. Back and forth.
It's just those two, like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Out of like the newer stuff, I'm a big like ocean and like deep sea guy. Like I just find like ocean life completely fascinating. It just makes me feel good. So I really like the Finding Nemo movies.
Someone said Goofy movie, and that is so on point.
The original Goofy movie
that's a deep cut.
That was a favorite.
That's a deep cut for sure. Oh yeah, Sword in the Stone was a big one for me.
Stand out above the crowd.
Yes, more of that, please.
Didn't everyone want to be a rock star when they watched that part and like break into their school gymnasium and like do that? It was the greatest thing I'd ever seen.
I had a huge crush on Roxanne from Goofy movie. If that's possible, to have a crush on a cartoon. But I did.
I think
You had a crush on who?
Most people's first
Roxanne.
Oh yeah.
She's a dog.
Also the squirrel from Sword in the Stone.
You guys. Oh my God.
It's just being human, people.
Oh man.
That girl squirrel from Sword in the Stone. She had those love eyes. She had those
strange animal attractions.
You know that girl squirrel? Sword in the Stone. You're cracking me up, man. You gotta stop. Ugh, good Lord. Ugh.
Quiet, Michael's here. Be on your best behavior.
All right, yeah, everyone. All right, everyone, calm down. Just stop Just everybody calm down.
It's hard not to say Lion King. I mean, that's a classic, right?
Oh shoot, I think that might be my favorite Disney.
But also shout out to Emperor's New Groove. Hilarious.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Be proud. We I think we had Noah as Kronk and Willow as Isma. One year, a couple years back. It's pretty fun.
That's funny, man.
Party's over, says Michael. Secret of Nim. Now, is that a Disney or is that
I don't think so. I think that's a Touchstone, isn't it?
Secret of Nim was so cool.
Disney.
It is Disney?
Like underground Disney.
I was like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, there's blood in this cartoon.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's real dark. That's a really dark movie.
Yes, you can watch these replays later inside the school community. Just go to the classroom and the replays will be posted within a few hours of
That's
when
why.
we finish every day.
No, it wasn't a Disney. It was a Don Bluth.
Mm.
That's why. Like All Dogs Go to Heaven and Land Before Time. Right. They all like touched on some like heavy subject matter.
Yeah.
All of them.
I was having a conversation with someone about Don Bluth. Apparently, at one point, he like stole. There was a period in the '80s where he stole a bunch of people from Disney and went and did his own thing. And Disney like struggled during that period
Oh, wow.
because he's got all the heavy hitting
Yeah.
Disney movies.
Yeah. His stuff was so good.
Did my homework and trashed my mix, so hoping tonight offers more understanding.
Yep. That's exactly where you should be, Steve. Well
Yeah.
done. Well done for being brave enough to.
Nice. What do you think, guys? You guys ready to go? If you guys are ready to move forward, ready to go with this thing, give us 4,672 in the chat.
Ooh.
Meow, 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 meow.
That's very fast.
That number is also synonymous with please stop talking about Disney movies.
I know.
Can you enable screen share, Jake?
I can. I would be happy to. It would be my honor and my great pleasure. I don't know how to do it. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
What if we can't find a similar reference track? You can.
Oh,
That's
cool.
it.
Straight
you
up.
can.
What a coach.
Yeah.
I could have done that.
Dane
No, it's sometimes you got to hop on some playlists and explore some places. There are also some websites that give you like some advice on that too. Forget the name of it, but really just hop on some playlists, and it doesn't have to be exact. Remember that it just needs to be something somewhat similar that wouldn't be too out of place if it was on the same playlist.
Yep. Exactly.
Fix the Mix, day 2, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I do hope you had a chance last night to dive into some of the homework. We really hit hard on the mastering lens that we can look through for all of this. And it is for a perspective change, right? I think one of the culprits we have in all of this is that we get too close sometimes to our mixes. We get lost in them sometimes. We start rabbit holing. The objective foundation or the lens that you can look through with mastering, as we discussed yesterday, can help keep you in check, can save you from yourself, and give you some perspective on a mix. So I hope you were all able to go and do the homework with that last night. If you didn't attend yesterday, what we basically taught is the end in mind perspective you can get from mastering and use it as a lens to look through. It has a lot to do with analyzing frequencies and compressors on a total left-brained technical level. Okay. And we're not worrying about creativity. We're not worrying about any of that. We're just looking at the objective foundation of frequencies and dynamics and all of that. And hopefully that shines some light for you. You were supposed to bounce down your mix and import a stereo track into a new session, loudness goal of -6 dBFS, then find a reference track, just find one, and pull that into the same session. Observe and analyze frequencies using a frequency analyzer of your choice. We used PAS analyzer. The goal with that was just have an understanding of what yours should look like when there's a balance in frequencies, but also how it looks compared to the reference. So it's gonna give you some information there as to how off of the reference you are. Observe and analyze dynamics visually and with a compressor. And then for some of you that didn't understand the rest of that, just apply a limiter and hear the problems made worse through adding energy to a track sonically. And then write those issues down and post your findings in the school community. I loved reading some of your comments that you made in the school community. I also really appreciated seeing everyone on there who was helping each other. I love that kind of stuff. And just a peek behind the curtain, but all of us who are in this company, I think we have a team of about 20. A lot of us have really been in the industry for a long time. We've seen the beautiful parts of it. We've also seen the darker parts of it. And at the end of the day, we're doing our best to have a vision that's about the better parts of music and the music community. So it was very cool for me to see some of you that were helping each other. And I think that's what it's all about. If you're really loving, these free Fix the Mix challenges, this is a way for you to pay that forward by helping other people, right? So I hope if you're enjoying it, that you be a part of a good community, giving back to the music community, and you can do that by helping each other. If you're not in the school community, make sure you hop on there. Michael can drop a link right now. That's where you can watch the replays for all of these. It's where you can also interact with other community members. It's totally free. It's just a place for you to get on and help each other and talk and connect and network and get feedback. So I hope you did that. And if you're one of those that is helping other people, much love to you. That's really, really awesome. So we talked about objectivity and about mastering yesterday. I want to just briefly go through a few more things when it comes to mastering and the objectivity lens that you can look through with mastering. Before we get into mixing today, just a few slides to finish up and wrap up the conversation we were having yesterday, because there's some important kind of cherries to put on top of that cake. What's the next level when it comes to objectivity? Well, I want to dispel a few myths for people. We'll start by talking to the self-producing artist. So I know some of you, your goal isn't necessarily to be a mix or mastering engineer for people. Your goal is to be a self-producing artist. You want your stuff to be sounding great, whether it's for your own playlist, for streams, for your artist development, or maybe even for licensing.
One in the chat. One in the chat if that's you. You're a self-producing artist. One in the chat. Yeah.
I know Dane and I learned mastering many years ago because we just wanted our licensing stuff to be a lot better, and we just wanted to have some more perspective on it and have more control over what we were doing. So that's an okay thing to do, but there is a myth out there that we want to dispel, and the myth is that you can't mix and master your own material. How many of you have heard that? Let's do a 2 in chat if you've heard that said before in this industry.
You need an objective set of ears. You need another person checking your work.
You do need an objective set of ears, but they can be your objective set of ears.
Oh, nice.
Nice, Dane.
Put that on YouTube.
The truth is, and I've only learned that, I wouldn't just say this, but I've seen this through experience, that if approached correctly, you can mix and master your own material. And in fact, you can do it better than anyone else. This was another thing we observed in teaching mastering to those old dogs that I was talking about yesterday with the long gray hair and bald spots. Not only were they coming back to us and saying my mixing and my production's getting better, we also taught mastering and mixing to producers, and in particular mastering with that end in mind perspective. And we had the interesting result many times where we had been mastering for the producer. And I could objectively say that once we taught them to do their own stuff, they were doing better masters than we were doing for them. It's not that ours weren't good. It was that once they had that objective foundation and that they could switch mindsets from production into mixing, into mastering, they were able to take their visions so much farther than we could, because we're not living in their head. We're only doing the best we can to enhance what they have. And we saw this enough times with enough people to really understand that the truth is, if you approach this correctly and learn to compartmentalize the processes, switch your mindsets, and have an objective foundation and an end in mind perspective, you can master and mix your material better than anyone else, 100%. So there is value in learning this stuff, even if you are the self-producing artist. What does it mean for you? What's the value of learning objectivity even more specifically? Well, it will push back on everything else. Just like a mastering engineer, like we talked about yesterday, who gets a mix or a song from a client, who has that 2-second ear to hear the mistakes that happened throughout the process, what you begin to realize is that it's all connected together. From the very first time you press record, all the way through the production process, all the way through mixing, it's all connected. And once you understand that objective end in mind perspective, you start to notice your weaknesses, the weaknesses in your mix, the weaknesses in your production, even the weaknesses in your performance. And so you're getting this perspective through objectivity that over time starts to refine your process. Again, it gives you the end in mind perspective, and it actually unlocks more creativity. Think of it this way. How many of you have had the experience where you're creating something? If you're a creative, if you're a self-producing artist, or you're creating something, and then you sometimes hit a wall where you say, what's coming out my speakers right now isn't exactly what I have in my head. I'm not able to actually get the quality or exactly the sound I have in my head to come out the speakers correctly. Have any of you had that experience? One's in chat.
I have, Caleb.
I certainly have. Sometimes it's just frustrating, right? You're being creative. You have this creative moment come along and you're not able to fully capitalize on it. And if you are creative, you know that those windows come and go. Sometimes you lose that inspiration, then it's gone. What happens when you learn an objective foundation is it pushes you to understand the tools that shape sound at such a high level that you're able to truly replicate any sound you have in your head to come out of the speakers correctly. When people hit that wall, it's because the creativity isn't lining up. The subjective isn't lining up with an objective standard of skill set. When you up that objective standard of skill set for objectivity, suddenly when you get to those creative moments, when those windows come, you're able to pounce on it. You're really able to take advantage of it and create exactly what the inspiration is saying in the moment. So it actually unlocks your creativity, doesn't diminish it. It sets you free. And you're really able to run with your creativity in those moments, which is really, really valuable.
100%.
This is what we've seen time and time again with producers and self-producing artists who come and learn these skills from us. For those of you who are mixing, I'm speaking to you now. So not the self-producing artists, but those of you who are trying to become mixing engineers for other people. If you are not at this time separating the mixing and mastering processes, you're leaving potential and money on the table. And if you're being honest, the 2 in chat for those of you who, when you mix for somebody, you just throw a master in there for free. Any of you doing that? The kindness of your heart?
Be honest. I used to do it.
Yeah. You just throw ozone on there, or you
You
do something, right? You just throw a master on there for free. It's just part of the mix. Well, you should separate them out, and you can use mastering in a few different ways if you do it correctly. Let me break this down for you all. Okay, there's quite a few points here, so stay with me for a sec. First off, a deeper dive into mastering. A lot of people don't really go into the power of mastering. They just use a tool like Ozone or something like that, or Lander, and they don't really get the room. They don't really get the ears. They don't really get the understanding of the tools at a high enough level to where any of this can be significant for you. Once you have that objective foundation, things start to happen, just like when we were training mastering engineers and their mixes and productions were getting better. What will happen is it will push back on your mixes if you mixed it for yourself. You'll start to see the problems in your mixes and productions, so that's helpful. You can also leverage it to push back on your clients' mixes. Now, see the value in this. I want you to understand this is very, very important. I'm not blind to the reality that there are AI robots out there that can master a song. I've used them. I've tested them, I should say. I don't use them. I've tested them, and they do an okay job, right? Have you had this experience? They do a pretty good job at balancing things and getting it up to loudness. So does that take away jobs? I don't think so. Because I don't think that people who really value their music are going to want an AI robot. They put all this time and energy, they put all this creative passion into it just to hand it off to a non-human. But even more, what you'll learn is that the human interaction is what people are looking for. So what I do for all my clients who come in, who are mixing clients, and I'm doing a master for them, for example, is I offer free mix notes to every mixing client who comes to me for mastering. They love this. Almost always they take this free advice. Once in a while they don't, but almost always they take this and they're so thankful for this free advice. And what that looks like is I'm saying to them, if you can fix this and this and this in the mix, I can make the master better. They're probably too close to it in some ways or whatever else it is. Just a few simple things. And they love that because then the master gets to a level that they weren't expecting. People will continue to pay, and they will always continue to pay for that kind of human interaction. And that's going to be a long time before AI robots do anything like that. So if you want longevity to your business, you need to add in and continue to add in ways that you can have the human touch there. Now, you don't always want to offer mixed notes. That's one way. If there's only a few things wrong and it's relatively good, you can offer mixed notes. They'll love that. What happens if it's really bad? Then you have the perspective to understand what needs changed. And if you get the sense that it would send them down too many rabbit holes and would be too hard for them to accomplish, if they don't have the skill set to mix it properly, then you can get business through offering to mix. People will come around to that. They just want their stuff to sound great at the end. And if it's unreasonable to give them mix notes, then you need to offer to mix. That's another lane of income for you. The last thing is sometimes you don't take the project. You will learn as a mastering engineer the things that can't be fixed and the people that can't be fixed. The music that can't be fixed and the people that can't be fixed. And I think it's too easy as we're building these businesses, our mixing or mastering businesses, to think, oh, well, I'm just practicing, so I'll take the $20 job from the guy down the road. But the reality is that wastes your time. It may seem like progress, but it's not. If you're good enough to do it, then don't take those clients, because there are people out there that will pay a lot more and they will appreciate what you do a lot more. And if you're not ready to do it, then get educated enough to do it. You should be spending your time on one of those two things. You should either be marketing yourself to the people who will pay you a good wage, or learning to get to the level where you could attract the people who will pay you a good wage. We have to change our mindsets from those of scarcity to those of finding the people who value their music and will pay you a professional wage out of appreciation for what you do. And Jake and I always say, and Dane as well, that the people who pay the least in this industry are the ones that are the hardest clients. They always like things they like things the least. They're always harder to work with because their stuff isn't very good, and they think you're going to save the world and change everything, but you can't, because you can't, as we learned yesterday, turn a Toyota into a Ferrari. Maybe you could turn it into a Lexus, but that's it. And they want the Ferrari. and they're going to pay you the least amount, and they're also going to be the hardest to work with. Whereas the people who pay you the most are actually the easiest clients. They're the happiest. They appreciate what you do, and they're paying you the most for it.
And they understand your value, like just straight up. They get it.
One of the things I have to get with people when we're working on these mindsets is stop taking that work that's slowing you down, that's getting in your way. Market yourself properly, get the skills properly, get the skills that you can do this properly, and then find the people who really appreciate it. And all of this is going to come back to better expectation management and communication on the front end with the clients that you have. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to observe and understand these songs on an objective level before you get too deep in there, and have these types of conversations up front. This is how you run a proper business where people are going to enjoy what you do. And hopefully that's useful for those of you who are trying to build these out. There's more to it, but definitely change the mindset and understand that the human touch is something that we can continue to offer our clients that robots never could. Those are the big takeaways here. And one last kind of thought on the economy of mastering and why you should add it to your skill set.
I love this.
Yeah. So check this out. If you're doing mixing for people, what we at least want to get our students to be able to do is a proper mix in 4 to 6 hours, and they would charge $400 to $600 for it, which is like $100 an hour, right? That's a good living wage for most people. So that's what the kind of standard we want to get our students to before they go out and start getting clients, which is great. $100 an hour is awesome. But even if you're just doing mastering and you're not mixing, or you're adding it to your skill set, the reality is we get our students to the place where they can master a track in 10 to 15 minutes. Once you know how to do it, it's the learning how to do it that's the hard part. Training your ears, getting the room, all that stuff is very particular. It's very high level. But once you know how to do it, the actual mastering process doesn't have to be very long. It's 10 to 15 minutes. You actually want to work quickly. It's not for the sake of speed. It's because I'm the person who has to have the best ears here. I'm the person that has to have the most objectivity here and save people from themselves. So I can't allow myself to get ear fatigue or to slow down. So I want to work quickly, and I want to work with that kind of intention and speed. But I charge $75 to $100 per master for it, which if you break that down, you're actually making $400 or $500 per hour. We have students all the time. They'll get their first album and they're so amazed because they're doing 10 or 12 songs. They're making $1,000 or $1,200, and it takes them an hour and a half, 2 hours tops by the time they export everything. Mastering, if you don't know it already, is actually the highest leverage, best dollar per hour thing you could probably do in the industry. And if you're not separating it out, you're leaving a ton of money on the table compared to just mixing for people. So you have to separate those out. And even for some of you who are artists, we have people in our program who they don't want to mix and master for other people. Like I said, they're just artists, self-producing artists. I have some of them who have started side mastering jobs or gigs, businesses, to just pay for their artist self to be able to do whatever they want, because they're making $400 to $500 an hour. Maybe they only need like 10 albums a month or something. Like 4 or 5 albums a month or something like that. And they're making $4 or $5 grand, and it's supporting their artist profile. It's giving them the time, because it's low time cost and high income. So they're using that to support the artist self. So hopefully the economy of mastering is something that's interesting to you. I think it's really interesting stuff to get into. You definitely want to separate those out. Anything to add, Jake?
No, man. I mean, I guess yes. Just think about it. Like, that's 10 masters a week. We'll get you a grand per week. If you want to kick it up and grind, 20 masters a week, that's $2,000 a week. And at the end of the month, that's $8,000, and you're making over 6 figures a year.
Yeah. Obviously, it's not like a get rich quick type of thing. You got to hustle for those clients, but there are 60,000 tracks being uploaded to Spotify every day. Every day, there's 60,000 tracks being uploaded. People need this type of work, and especially with mastering, there's not a ton of people. In fact, you'll spend most of your time educating people as to why they need mastering.
Exactly.
There's tons of people that need it. There's a lot of people that don't know they need it. And once you convert them, they'll come back to you forever, right? And especially if you're adding that human touch in, they'll come back to you forever. So anyway, hopefully that's interesting. Some good takeaways there. It's time though to finally switch gears. This is Fix the Mix after all. Quit talking about mastering. I know, I get it, but we are mastering.com. We do have a different perspective. So buckle your seatbelts. Let's switch to mixing.
Wow.
Dive into this. Yeah, you guys ready?
All right.
One's
You
in
guys
chat
ready?
if you're ready to dive into mixing.
Yeah, 621,733 if you're ready to move on to mixing. I don't see any commas. I don't see any commas in there.
We're lacking some commas. All right, let's get a game plan for the next 2 days, right? We have 2 days that we're going to focus on a mix. We're going to mix the song that we heard yesterday over the next 2 days, and we're going to kind of break that up into different parts of the process. We're going to show you the process from start to finish. Today, we're going to talk about session prep, editing, and initial volume balance. The way we usually do this is Jake has already gone in this morning. He's prepped the session. He's done all the editing, which is like tuning and aligning things, all that kind of stuff. He's got that ready so that today we can focus on initial volume balance. And tomorrow, we're going to focus on frequencies, dynamics, and space. So you're talking about your EQs, compressors, reverbs, delays, all that kind of stuff, how to mix with all of that. And just so you know, tomorrow he will have done all the frequencies and dynamics before we start, and we will focus on space. But just like with session prep and editing today, he's going to walk you through everything he did. So there's not a part of the process we're going to leave out. He's going to just walk you through it. He's already done the moves, but he'll tell you why. Just to save a little bit of time so these sessions aren't too long, we'll focus on today initial volume balance and tomorrow space. But for those of you who are new, no cheaters.
New people.
New people only.
New only.
What's the ratio of importance between day one and day two? 50-50, 60-40, 40-60,
What do you think?
70-30, 30-70.
New people. 40-60, 60-40, 50-50. We always get a few hundreds.
Wow.
50, 90, 10.
Those guys are living on a totally different plane of
Yeah,
existence.
dude, I can't keep up.
Those numbers are
Can't keep up with that.
hard to comprehend. What we want to suggest to you, and this will make more sense as we go through, and we're not just saying this, but in reality, in terms of importance to the final outcome of your mix, what you do in day one is 80% of it, and what you do in day two really should be the final 20%, the frosting on the cake, the cherry on top. And we're going to break down why that's so important over the next couple of days, and you're going to get to see that in progress. But it's really true that emphasis on this stuff that we're going to talk about in day one is actually most of what makes a great mix. And it's oftentimes the stuff people skip over or breeze by. How often have you gone into a mix and you started throwing EQs immediately on stuff, compressors on stuff?
High passing everything.
It's easy to do, right? It's easy to start there and forget about some of the other stuff. So let's break down why day one is so significant. It's the 80-20 mixing rule, okay? Why are the initial parts of the mixing process so powerful? Well, session prep enables efficient workflow. So it's like if you're cooking, a lot of people who don't know how to cook just kind of jump in there, they turn the pan on, they throw the butter in there, then they start chopping stuff, then they start making their aioli.
Are you kidding me?
They're chefing up.
You don't just pop open your SpaghettiOs and dump them in, or
they're popping. Jake is a little more advanced than that. They're chiffonading, they're mint. Okay. But the real way to cook is to prep everything beforehand. Why do we do that? Well, if you throw the pan on, it's hot, then you forgot the one thing, and then it's burning. You threw the onions in, but now they're burning because you forgot to chop the peppers or whatever else it is. It's a bad workflow. The best kind of workflow for cooking, because I think cooking is actually a very creative kind of thing to do, is to have everything prepped, have everything in their little bowls, have everything measured out, have everything ready, right? And seasoned, so that when it's time to cook, you can just go in there and be creative and cook and be really in touch with the cooking process. Any of you who are cooks out there, you know what I'm talking about. But you want to compartmentalize those processes, okay? So it's the same way with music. If you have everything in there, and it's obviously this with editing too, prepped and edited, before you get into that creative mixing mindset, it will never take you out of that moment. It will never take you out of the mindset that you should be in. It sucks to get down the line and you're really into it and you're starting to get in tune, and then all of a sudden you realize that something's out of alignment. And so then all of a sudden you're down a rabbit hole of editing and you've taken yourself out of that creative moment of mixing, or the mixing moment, or the mixing mindset. That's not the way to do it. So session prep and editing are very important. And the thing that we're going to really try to emphasize today, though, after session prep and editing, is that your most powerful tool as a mix engineer is volume. It's not EQs. It's not compressors. It's not limiters. It's not reverb. It's actually volume. Volume is everything. What do I mean by that? When we are mixing, we need to think of a three-dimensional stage in front of us that has depth, height, and width. The listener wants to be immersed in some sort of 3D space with music, unless the intention of the music is to sound very narrow, which is a style. It's still a choice you're making. So you're painting within the depth, width, and height parts of this sound stage in front of you. That's how we have to think of it, very viscerally, almost visually. And where we're placing everything in the height, width, and depth dimension really matters, okay? Frequencies are most altered by volume. Do any of you believe that statement?
I don't believe it.
I mean, let's go back. What affects depth? Things that are quieter sound further away. Things that are closer are louder. Isn't that right? What affects width? Panning, which is just changing volume side to side, right to left, left to right, right? We're taking volume away from one side, we're adding it to the other. That's width. It's actually a volume feature, even though the pan knob doesn't seem like volume. That's why it's on the volume fader generally, is because it is a function of volume. We're just changing it left to right, right to left. What about height? What affects height in music? Do any of you know who are new? It's actually frequencies. Think about it. Things that are low down or in the bass frequencies, where do we feel those in our body? We feel them in our feet, our legs, our connection to the ground, maybe in our gut. That's where we feel bass. Where do you feel mids? It's visceral. We feel this as a listener of music. Where do you feel it? We often talk about mids as kind of the warm blanket. It could be too warm, of course. But we think of that as the warm blanket over our chest, our body. And where do we hear high frequencies? Right? Up in our head voice. We have words for it like air or head voice. We actually experience the height of music in frequencies. So what affects frequencies more than anything else? It's not EQ. EQ is fine-tuning frequencies, but volume affects frequencies more than anything else. Where you place things, at the level that you place them at, the volume that you place everything in your mix at, affects so much more of the frequencies that you're representing, from 20 hertz to 20K. And if you turned that on its side and it looks just like an EQ curve, then you're seeing that a little bit more kind of how we think of things with EQ. But the greatest thing that adds highs to a mix is your volume and turning up the whatever it is that's creating highs in your mix. In this case, it's shakers and tambourine, right? not EQ. So before we ever touch EQ, before we ever touch compression, we're thinking about where we're placing things and painting in this 3 dimensions of space. Why do we want to utilize, generally in most music, utilize all the space? Because we need to create separation in our mixes. We don't want things competing. And we want to give the listener a full-bodied, generally top to bottom, wide, and in terms of depth, experience. So EQ is really just volume, or frequencies is really just volume and where we place things initially. Think of the faders on your DAW or wherever else you're fading from as the thing of most affecting frequencies. Width is most altered by volume. We've already talked about this, right? Width is just panning, but it's also placing things so that things are balanced in terms of width, having enough stuff on both sides so nothing's distracting. That's really just volume though. And depth is most altered by volume. That's the easiest one to understand because, again, things that are further away sound are quieter, and things that are closer sound louder, or vice versa. So really that whole 3D cube, that 3D soundstage that we're painting in, is all done with volume. What does that mean for us? It means that we need to focus on volume before we do anything else. That our mix, and what we were saying before, 80-20 rule, is that if we're using volume correctly, volume and panning, and what we're about to talk about in a minute with volume automation, you can get your mix 80% of where it needs to be without ever touching an EQ or compressor. And this will totally change your mindset about how you approach mixes. I know some of you are already doing this, but I know some of you aren't. And this will totally change your mindset and how you approach music and your mixes. Even dynamics are most influenced by volume. We think of what as controlling volume or dynamics the most? Compressors and limiters, right?
Yeah.
It's not. At least not for the things that are the most important in your mix. I talked yesterday about telling a story, right? And so you're deciding as a mix engineer with good communication from the producer as to what should be occupying our focus in every moment as part of the story. Usually it's like a vocal, right? Or a lead that comes in that takes over the focus. And we need to take extra care of the volume balance of those key storytelling elements. So with vocal, for example, before we ever use a compressor, before we ever use a limiter, before we ever use EQ, we're going to use volume automation. For whatever those main key elements are, we're going to use volume automation first, and maybe even multiple layers of volume automation to get things sitting in the mix properly. Again, this is just volume. We don't want our compressors and limiters to work too hard. This is the secret. If you watch pro people work on vocals, or sometimes bass, or other instruments that can be unwieldy, but especially vocals, you see them going in and doing this type of volume automation before they ever use any compressors. And their compressors, when it comes to this, are more for glue than for fixing problems. So we have an example here of what would be a vocal. You can see, probably because it's so dynamic, I think the human voice is probably the most dynamic instrument that you'll ever have to deal with. There's very loud parts and quiet whispery parts, and it is the hardest part to deal with. You can see that this person has gone in and added volume automation to help tame that stuff before they ever went to compression. You see that on the left-hand side, there's a big dynamic there, a big transient. They've gone in and written in that information in terms of volume beforehand. You notice on the end, the very last move that they made, they brought up the tail. And this is another thing you do. It's not just bringing things down, but bringing out the intimacy in many, many moments with volume. A compressor won't make those types of choices for you, right? A compressor is just doing its thing. And we can tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak. But when it comes to the focal point, we need to be a lot more intentional about what we do And especially with the vocal, we need to go in and bring out the ends of those phrases when they need to be brought out, and the intimacy of the vocal when it needs to be brought out, or bring things down that are poking out. And we need to do that with a lot more intention than we do with a lot of the instruments that we work with. Is that all making sense to everybody? One in chat if that's making sense. Do you have any questions about that? We looking good, Jake?
Looking real good.
One's
Dang.
all over.
Look at this. One's all over the place.
Great.
Hmm.
So then again, everything is still just volume. Even dynamic processing on our key elements is done with volume, not compressors and limiters. So we're using the EQ a lot less. What you'll see Jake do tomorrow, for example, is you'll be surprised by how little he actually had to use EQ compressors and limiters. And you'll understand and see the value of that, because all of that is much more destructive to audio than just volume. Volume is just turning things up and down. Compressors and EQs, anytime you use those, you're adding phasing, you're adding destructive properties. So the less you have to use that stuff, the better. It'll actually give you a cleaner, better mix. So our goal for today is to see how far Jake can push this mix just with volume. That's what he's going to demonstrate today. It's going to be volume only mixing. We're not going to use any non-volume plugins. It's mostly going to be just the volume fader for like the vast majority of this. And we're going to see how far we can push it just with volume. And of course, that will be your assignment to do later as well. A couple other big concepts to note today. I think what this does for you in a big sense is it helps you mix with a lot more intention. Intention is everything. It's easy to get lost in mixes. But when you focus on just the volume and seeing how far you can push things with volume up front, you're doing that with a ton of intention. And you'll also notice today, as Jake is doing that he takes notes for tomorrow about what couldn't be fixed with just volume. So that tomorrow he has a ton more direction and focus on the stuff that he knew wasn't working, with fixing just with volume, and he can go through those notes instead of just start throwing compressors and EQs on everything. And again, tomorrow we get to work with a lot more intention too, because we're doing the process correctly throughout. We're going to fix first, then enhance. That's going to be the mindset. Jake will break that down a little bit more. And of course, we're going to use an objective reference. We don't have mix notes today because it's, I guess we will, because it's Dan and I's production. So we'll be looking over Jake's shoulder. He gets the wonderful
I usually
opportunity.
I usually charge double for attended sessions.
Yeah. We're going to be breathing down his neck as the producers of this song. So I hope you get all that. I know that was quite a lot, and Jake is going to break all this down again. If you're feeling a little bit lost with that, you're going to get to see that in live action today. But again, it's all about volume today. We're going to see how far we can push this thing with just volume. You ready for a demo, Jake?
That's that font makes me want to do just like a quick little shred.
All right,
Yeah,
it's all
I'm
you.
ready. I'm ready. Let's do it. You guys should be able to see my DAW. You guys got my DAW? Cool. One in the chat. You guys seeing my DAW all right? Yeah. Sick. All right. Cool. Wonderful. So let's open the notepad here and we'll just kind of like map out what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a walkthrough of how this was set up. So the walkthrough, the organization of the session. Number two, I didn't do any editing on this track. The production was so good that I didn't have to. All right. So well done, Caleb and Dane.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you. Save me some time today. Love getting tracks that don't need editing. By the way, guys, I do just like quick side note, editing. If there's like massive editing to do, like it's a heavy lift on the editing side of things, that's a separate charge. Like that's a separate service. So if you're hired to do mixing and they're just like a couple minor things to tweak, fine. And that's easy enough. But tracks should come to you fully edited. That means vocals should be completely comped and tuned, and any kind of like out of time kind of stuff should be fixed. Like that's part of like the tail end of production. So it goes production, editing, mixing, mastering. Okay. So that's huge. Like a lot of people think that it's one and the same. Separate them. Again,
Yep.
that's an additional service, additional charge. You shouldn't be doing a whole bunch of heavy lifting, editing.
Yeah, if you get a bunch of sloppy work from someone, that is not your responsibility to fix that unless you charge for that. 100%.
So I'm going to walk you through organization, and then two, I mean, we're going to do what? We're going to do a gain stage, quick gain stage. 3, we'll get a volume balance here. Anything I'm missing here, Caleb?
Nope.
Think that's pretty good. Like to keep it
Yeah,
nice and simple, just 3 steps here. Let's
Walkthrough of organization. We
Yeah.
always want to explain gain staging. A lot of people don't really understand the importance of that. We'll teach you how to do that and then get that volume balance. 100%.
Cool. Guys ready to go? 29 in the chat if you're ready.
Cool.
I like to do easy ones sometimes. Cool.
Keeps you
All
on your
right, I'll show you
toes.
how. What's that?
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, just try to mix it up. Variety. It's a spice of life. Let's hit up these drums. I'll show you guys what's going on here. So I grouped all of the drums together. I think total track count on this is 72. So we've got drums. I grouped the main pieces of the kit, the kicks and snares and things like that, with like percussive elements, because that's just kind of, that's what the production is. It's very kind of electronic based. So I'll generally just kind of like group all the sounds together, perk and drum kit all together. So that's all being sent to a single drum bus. There is one bass guitar being sent to a single bass bus. There are 5 guitar tracks here, all being sent to a guitar bus. Keys, got a bunch of keys tracks here. All sent to a keys bus. We've got sound effects. So these are things like special, like one-time effects, right? Like risers and downfalls and maybe kind of like sweeping effects that help elevate or lower the energy, bring down the energy of a track. So I like to kind of bust those separately. I've got my vocals all sent to a vocal bus. And I've got vocal SFX, right? Sound effects. These are like special like little vocal effects and vocal chops that were pulled from the lead vocal and used strategically throughout the track. So they're not quite vocal tracks, like in the sense that it's somebody singing. These have been affected and they're used more like instruments and special kind of like ear candy-ish kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I got all of those.
Those are all buses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Logic, stacks like this are buses essentially.
Yeah. I love using this feature. So like if you guys have a DAW that has an expanding or collapsing bus feature, I absolutely recommend it. It's just way easier on the brain than doing something like that, right? It just helps for me. It just helps with focus. You know, it's an organizational thing and it's a focus thing, right? See how clean that looks? All right. And we could just kind of like go over and you can see how clean everything looks. It's just really important. Right. And then you can close them up when you're not using them. Right. So if I'm just working on drums, I can just open the drums, so on and so forth. Right. Cool. So that is walkthrough of the organization. Any questions before we move on to gain staging? Give you all a minute. Nope. Guys following me? Got a question, just quickly type it in the chat. How do you choose the colors? Yep, it's just a preference. Personal preference.
Jake and I, in fact, use different colors.
Very different colors. Our organization is very different. Our sorting and our naming conventions are very just different. Just
Yep.
different. The important
Which
thing is that
totally
like
fine.
you find something that works for you, right? And you stay consistent with it. So you're not like confusing yourself from session to session to session. So I know that my drums are always going to be at the top of the session. They're always going to be in orange. So I can quickly just move right to them, right? Yeah, there's no industry standard color allocation.
Yeah, and even though we're using Logic today, the principles are big picture principles, and you should be able to do most of this stuff, if not all, in your DAW. And if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. Google will tell you very quickly.
I program my own key command to open and close all the buses together. Somebody asked that. You can Google how to do that. Whatever makes sense to you, Jeffrey. Correct. There's no more producing to be done at this stage. Producing is over. Editing is over.
In fact, a good point. If we're talking about compartmentalizing our processes, even when I'm working on my own stuff, I don't mix in my production session. Just like I don't master in my mix session like we were talking about yesterday.
Yeah.
Bounce everything down, commit it to audio, no more VSTs or plugins or anything. You bounce it all down to audio, and you got to commit. You have to. Limitation is part of the process. You have to. If you don't, your mind will go crazy. You'll rabbit hole forever, and you'll never get anywhere, and you'll lose focus.
Yeah.
So you have to limit yourself, commit, start a new mix session, and then when it's time to master, you need to leverage that as well. Bounce it down to a stereo track.
Right on. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on here. Gain staging. Let's talk about it. Why do you want to gain stage? Anybody know? Anybody know? Can anybody share with us? Balance? New people? Balance? Volume? Why do you want to gain stage? Have enough
Headroom, I saw it.
Yep.
I saw it.
Headroom. Headroom. If you got a bunch of tracks going to your master at, and all of them are at like 0, your master is going to clip like that, right? So it's just an easy way to get some headroom here. And
the goal is to get to, no more than -6 dBFS on your stereo out by the time you're done with this process. So the gain staging will help you get there.
Yeah, usually that means like the average signal of each individual track is going to sit somewhere between -10 and -20 decibels, right? That might seem like a big window because it is, but it'll give you what you need.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact. You just need to give yourself ample room.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, give me just a moment. I'm going to share my desktop.
Today's where it becomes important that you all have the correct audio settings on. If you didn't do that from yesterday, go to your audio settings in Zoom. Make sure original sound for musicians is on. Turn on high fidelity music mode and stereo audio. If you're hearing it in mono, you'll know that you haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Unique. I'm a little under the weather, but giving you my all.
All right, guys. Sit tight, guys. Just getting audio settings set up here. Bear with me. Caleb, you should now be host. I'm going to hop out and hop back in real quick.
Okay.
Sweet.
Also, for those of you who were at NAMM who stopped me and said hello, that was really cool. Appreciated seeing all of you, being able to talk to a lot of you in person. not just students of the program, but a lot of you from Fix the Mix actually said hello. Glad to meet all of you. Yep, Kahari found me. Namorific. Yeah, I was at Nam with Dane, probably got whatever he has. So I guess we'll find out what that is. Reference track plugins. Jake will demonstrate one of those today. What do you recommend as key things in editing before mixing? Yeah, Ryan, it really just needs to all be tuned and aligned. Those are the main things. You don't want to have to hop out of the mixing mindset and start tuning and aligning things. Yeah. Whoa. Congrats. Golly mastering EQ. That's sick. Yeah, Gifted. He's going to talk about that today. Tuning, like if the vocal needs tuning or something like that. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Cutting out clicks and pops and all that kind of stuff. If there's a bunch of like heavy breathing or stuff in the vocal, a lot of it's vocal stuff, but not always. There could be editing for other stuff too. It's easy stuff, but it's time consuming stuff. It will waste a lot of time if you don't charge for it separately. Aligning things, tuning things, if done properly, can definitely take a long time. Crossfading would be considered editing. Yep. Drum alignment or drum replacement could be considered editing. Yep. My DAW of choice is Logic. Pre-fader mode. Yep. Gain is pre-fader. Does everyone understand this? Gain is pre-fader. Volume is post-fader. So what he's doing right now is affecting the gain before it goes into your plugins, before it goes into your channel strip. Yep, before it touches the fader. Yeah, Sean. Again, gain is just before it hits your plugins. Essentially, that's what you need to understand about it. It's before it hits your channel strip, and volume is after. So when we're talking about gain staging, what he's about to demonstrate, hopefully he's not having a major computer problem, but what he's about to demonstrate is how to get the gain coming into the channel strip and coming into the plugins at a level that won't overwhelm anything. And also, because sometimes too much heat or too much volume or energy coming into your channel can affect plugins in a negative way, but also just creating room so that we can get to that negative 6 dBFS before we are done and not be like clipping there. Can I explain phasing in a few words? Yeah, it's when audio gets out of alignment with itself. So for example, if you had a drum set and you had two overhead mics, right? Imagine that those overhead mics are receiving the waveform from the drums at different times. And what we know happens is when we have waveforms, right, that are literally waves, right? And what happens when you are out of alignment, where what it means is the peak of one wave and the trough of one wave are hitting the mic at the same time, right? So one is getting a trough and one is getting a peak. What will happen is when you play those together, it cancels out the sound. And if it was you can do this on your own. Like if you had two exact tracks and you flip the phase, you won't hear anything. It'll be total silence. So you just have to be aware of that, but you have to understand also it's not just recording. Whenever you apply EQ, even compression sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you have the chance of actually adding phasing in on left to right. And so again, that's why I consider those things destructive, especially big cuts, like that's why you have linear phase, for example, as an option on most modern EQs, which is going to help take that out. But like a big cut at 60 hertz, like a big thing, is actually going to be adding phasing in potentially into your your sound. Sorry, I'm getting you guys are lots of questions. I don't master. Oh, what headphones am I wearing? These are just some AKGs I had with me on the road. They're not the ones I use at home. I use some Oppo PM3s. And I don't recommend mixing and mastering in headphones, but if you had to, one of our partners is SonarWorks. If you came into the program, we can help you get set up with some that are tuned, which helps a lot because they're actually more accurate. How is turning on the game in my interface different than turning up the gain in Logic? It's not. It's not. But when you have 100 tracks, you're probably going to have things at pretty different volumes. You just need to make sure there's nothing that's over negative 10 dBFS so that you have headroom. Ryan, you can kind of hear it. An accurate room will definitely help for all of this stuff. A lot of people skip over rooms. Like 95% of people I talk to have skipped over that and they've spent their time working on other tools. But you got to think of it this way. What's the point of, like, if you don't have an accurate room, how are you ear training properly? And if you haven't ear trained properly, how do you know you're hearing things correctly? Right? You have to start with something earlier on if you really want to take this seriously. Yep. $10,000 speakers in a bad room are worse than $100 speakers in a perfect room, 100%. Room is very, very important. That's why we work on that week 3 with our students early on. They call it Hell Week though, because it's a lot of work, but you got to do it. Yeah, a way to measure your room. SonarWorks, one of the partners of our company, they have a product that will help you measure Hell Week. Yeah, it's a lot of work to do things right, but it's worth doing things right. Everyone's thankful in the end that they did things correctly.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, you got me. Hey, can you do me a favor and check audio settings or check the Slack channel? I'm trying to get a hold of you.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, let me look. All right, why don't I make you host? Maybe that'll do it. And try now. Yeah, Room EQ Wizard is another one known as REW that can help people. That one's free, REW. It's a little complicated, but once you get it, it actually is faster than SonarWorks. A lot of speakers are starting to have integrations. And I think we're coming to a time where a lot of audio interfaces will start to have room tuning built in. It's just that important. We've kind of missed this part for the home studio engineer, but it's a very important part. No, monitors are almost always better than headphones. Yeah, our life is fixing tech problems. How can I access the trainings? You're in the training right now. Carl, I was texting Jake. Jake, is it fixed now for you? Yeah. Jesus, it is, but it's worth doing right. Let me give me one moment, guys. I'm going to try to See what's going on with Jake's. I can't change any of the settings now, Jake, because you're host. It's grayed out for me too. That's weird. Anyone know a lot about Zoom? This has never happened to us before. Sorry, y'all. This is a random one. It's like a glitch. Try now, Jake. When we're screen sharing, the option to share sound is grayed out.
Oh, pass me back. I might have found a solution. Pass me back hosting.
You're all incredibly patient. I appreciate y'all. Good people. Today we're going to learn how to fix this problem in Zoom.
Got it.
Nice. What was it, Jake?
It was something with the share settings. I changed it from multiple panelists can share simultaneously over to one panelist can share at a time, and then I adjusted a couple settings in there.
Okay, cool.
Let's pop that open. I want to make sure you guys can see my mug as well.
This is part of session prep and editing. We charge more for this.
Yeah, this is a separate process, so you don't charge more for this, you're leaving money on the table. You guys see me all right?
Looking beautiful.
Nice. All right, let's take a break. Just kidding.
People
But-
were very upset when you said that.
Sweet. All right, gain stage. Let's get back to it. Is there anything you want to wrap up here before we get back to gain staging?
We answered some questions while you're away about
Yeah.
gain staging, so we're good.
Yeah, it's sick. Let's do it. So we talked about this -20. I'm going to write it on the screen here too, so you guys can see it. You guys seeing logic okay? Everybody seeing
Yep.
logic all right? All right. So gain staging, that means each individual track, we want to kind of sit between -20 and -10 decibels. That's kind of like the range that we shoot for. So you can either do this manually. So you've got this kick here, make sure the fader is at 0, and then just look at the meter. That's sitting right in the sweet spot already, right? It's between -10, -20. We're good to move on. Let's go to the next one. Let's go, I don't know, maybe this drum loop. You know, peaking up there and kind of sitting between -10, -20. I think that's fine. Let's go down here to this bongo, right? Don't worry, I'm going to show you a shortcut way to do this too. So obviously with this bongo, we're sitting in at -21 when the fader's at 0. So we're just going to turn the gain up, region gain. Look at just like that. And you can see that the waveform kind of pops up, right? Now we're in our sweet spot, -10, -20, right? Peaking at -12. Great. Cool. We can move on. Okay. That's the long way. The short way is to select all your regions, select all your tracks. See that? And we're just going to normalize them. This is going to look a little bit different depending on what DAW you use. All right. But we're going to normalize region gain, individual regions to peak, no higher than -10. Apply. And here you're going to notice that these waveforms are going to change in size. Whoop. Right?
Your DAW may or may not have that feature. You can go through and do them each by hand. It's not too hard to do, but in Logic, it's a very nice feature to just be able to click a button.
Yep.
And it gets everything to -10, -20.
Right? Easy. Easy peasy. Yeah. And if we take a look at all these tracks now, you'll see that they're all kind of sitting right around the same size. Right? All kind of the same size. Peaking no higher than -10 decibels. Right? That's the instruction that we gave the robot, and then the robot followed our instruction and made everything the same size, right? Super easy. Done. Gain staged. Any questions? You just gave me a load of my life back. You're welcome, Phil.
I remember when we learned that trick too, we were like, oh,
Of course.
I've been doing it by hand for so many years.
Yeah, automatically did it, Ian. Where was that option again? You can just Google. It's in functions, and then normalize region gain. Right? But if you guys don't know how to do it in your DAW, just Google it. That's a Google.
Yeah. You can also go back and rewatch this replay as many times as you want for the next week. So if you miss anything, don't worry. We're recording redundantly.
Cool.
So how do you do a volume balance, Jake?
Somebody asked, I thought you had to do this with a VU meter. No, you don't have to do it with a VU meter. You don't want to. I never do. And it's never been the thing that has not gotten me a mixing job, or it's never been the thing that has caused somebody to turn the song off or anything like that. Right. Just don't need to do it. Anyway, and then, yeah, guys, if you have questions on VU meter versus like meters, like decibels or anything like that, that's totally Googleable. There's plenty of YouTube videos out there on that. Cool. All right, volume balance. We're going to move on.
Yeah, it's okay if you use a VU meter.
Yeah, it's okay.
Totally your call for sure.
No.
You just don't need to.
Yep. All right, what do you think, guys? Want to balance volume?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
See how far we can push it.
Yep. First, I'm going to select all the tracks. You can see, selected everything here. All right.
Except for the buses.
Except for the buses. And we're going to bring them down. Negative infinity. And we're going to bring things in one at a time. I generally like to work with the drums first.
Why is that, Jake?
Yeah, just like to get the groove going. You know? And I like to pick one element to kind of bring up to 0 and then mix everything else around it. Right? That's the priority element. So or an anchor element, I like to call them. So that could be anything. You can choose any element you want. I like to use the kick drum because that's typically something that kind of like continues to push the momentum forward of the song, and it's kind of always present. Right? You can use something like a lead vocal, you know, or another very important kind of driving element of the track to kind of mix everything else around. But that's the concept, right? You pick one thing that you can bring to 0 and then mix everything else around it. Totally up to you on what that one thing is. Make sense? I'm going to use it's the foundation. Exactly. I'm going to use the kick in this case. All right. So let's get these drums kind of just balanced. Let's get them in. Start the kick. kind of going through this by gut, guys. Roll into that. You just somebody just killed me with that bop it comment. Dude, I can't.
Jake had to mute his video. Some of these sounds came from the artist.
Oh man. Dude, I
and
just
some of them came from
belly
us.
laughed.
You have to decide which are which.
Woo. Good Lord. Oh man, these sounds are great though. Like they're placed. They're well placed and well panned and things like that. I don't really feel the need to mess with the panning that the original producer intended. Well, yeah, they're panning. There's panning in the original tracks. Like there's stereo.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you produce something or you're using you're using samples. You're probably using some stereo samples or like stereo instrumentation, stereo plugins, or recording something stereo, and all that panning is going to be baked in, right? So, like perfect example is this crunch loop, right? You know, there's panning happening. There's stereo information happening here, left to right. Right. You know, where else? Like the shaker. You know? It's
Yeah, if
left
you're
to
not
right.
hearing that in stereo, you need to go change your audio settings.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm going to put, I'll paste in the chat section right now exactly how to do that, guys. Audio settings. Okay. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I'll make sure everybody can see it. Here you go. Cool. Somebody asked if volume and panning are done mostly at this stage. Not necessarily. You know, you should have the mindset when you're recording and you're producing to produce it to sound mixed, right? So like get as close as you can in that phase. Like don't save certain things, you know, just get it done in the production phase. You know, if you can quickly do it, do it. You know, place it then and there. Yeah, sometimes you might need to repan, sometimes you might not. I like to just keep the original intention of the producer.
So whenever
Much as
I
possible,
bounce,
anyway.
whenever I bounce out for mix, I'll typically bounce out, especially if someone else is doing it. If I'm doing it, I don't. But if I'm bouncing out for someone else to mix, I'll do a dry version and a wet version. It doesn't take me much extra time to do that. And usually the mix engineer is going to pull in the wet stuff. But if he ever has a problem with any of the wet sounds, he has the dry to come back to.
I prefer getting stuff with wet effects baked in, simply because it's easier and I can get the job done faster. And I know that the producer or the artist selected those exact sounds, right? So I know they're going to be happy with them because they sent them to me like that.
Right, Ian, but no spatial effects. I don't bake those in typically. Those they can hear for themselves in the reference bounce. So I will bounce out a reference as well so that they can hear what the intention was, but I usually let that be redone.
Wet is like reverb, like time-based effects.
Wet's just like all the plugins, any sound shaping plugins we have on there, and panning and volume and all of that is wet, right? So I'm sending stuff with all that baked in, but then the dry one has no panning baked in, no volume baked in, no plugins baked in. It's just raw.
Gonna roll into it. Stop. Mark. See, this is kind of an odd one. This is one that I would have preferred to have in stereo, right? Because with this track, it's mono, but it has reverb baked into it, and it's all straight up front. And we could have had an opportunity here to really kind of like spread out that reverb to the sides and expand the stereo image of this track. But now we're kind of like in a place where we're restricted, right? So I think I probably would have wanted to have the flexibility, but there's still a lot of tracks to bring in here, right? So we might not even have the space for it. Cool. Happy with kind of like the bounce there. Let's keep going. go back to the top and start to bring in some of these other effects. So the intro to the impact is really kind of like an important piece to grab. Right? We don't want it to be too loud. We don't want the listener to lean in too much and then just get smashed in the face. And then we have to like reach for their volume knob immediately, right? So getting this balance between the sound effects and the intro and where the full band comes in, super important. So I think we need to bring that a little bit closer. I just brought it down just a touch. Okay with that? I like that. All right, so we got vocals there. And this is all we have in the verse. Cool. We're gonna save this stuff for later. Start to bring these in. That crash was annoying me. That's too much. Got lots of stuff to bring in here.
They wanted a really like chaotic ending outro that kind of breaks down.
Bring in these little tidbits. All right, let's do a listen through without the vocals. Okay, I think this is kind of like a main focal point here, so we're gonna bring that in. And this, these guitars. Oh, did my screen go out?
Your camera did, yep.
Let's try again.
Yeah, I see a lot of you talking about the track count. This client wanted a really frenetic, lots of little percussion stuff. And whether you like that style or not, it's obviously what the client wanted. Some people dig this style for sure. But the point is actually pretty hard to mix this many tracks. And so for the sake of a mixing session, probably pretty good bang for buck.
Mm. Yeah, just gonna toss that funky guitar over to the side. This something about the impact into that chorus is too harsh for me. I think it's coming from this crash, that right there, but I can't quite tell. Maybe it's this crash piling up with the cymbal hit. Or something else. There's so little high frequency content before hopping into that section that when it does poke its head out, it's off-putting. What happens when we just mute the crash? Yeah, it's the symbol here. I'm just going to put a note in here to tame the highs.
You could almost just get rid of that first cymbal hit.
Let's lower it for now. Something in the right speaker. Yep. This is throwing me off. Like a 1K-ish maybe. So we'll come back to that. We'll fix that later. Again, laser focus, guys. I'm just focusing on volume right now. I'm hearing things and I'm observing things and I'm taking notes on other things, but I'm not rabbit holing. Right? Just taking
Not fixing him now. He's saving that for tomorrow.
Moving on, right? All right. Let's not forget, guys. We've still got about 5 12 tracks to bring in.
Jimmy, yeah, the trumpets are cool. Trumpet dad from the community did those for us.
They're already kind of sitting at a high level here, so I'm going to bring down my buses. Why don't we take a quick break? 5 minutes. And we'll bring in the vocals and the vocal sound effects. That okay with you guys? Little bio break. Get up, take a short walk, hit the can, grab something to
Freshen-
drink, grab a
Fresh
snack.
in the ears.
Yeah, freshen the ears. Cool. Everybody cool with that? Sweet. Let's do it. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the timer. Do let's see, Google Timer, my favorite timer. See you in 5. Hi.
Hi.
Up, guys? What's good? What's good? All right. What do you think? You guys ready to bring some vocals in? Let's bring the vocals in. Let's do it. Give me a 13 if you're ready to go.
Was thinking of more numbers.
I
hard,
was,
Jake.
and I was just like,
Someone did 13 ... That's clever.
nice. I was waiting. Ah. All right, let's bring some vocals in. Let's see what we got. So I did have an opportunity to check out these vocals, and this apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Caleb, this is how you received the vocals.
That's right. They actually had done some of the production on this already, and so we were more enhancing everything. And they're good producers and mixers and mastering engineers in their own right. Actually, students of the program. That's not how we connected, though. They're from Utah. Actually, students of your old program.
My old program.
Yeah, Matt, musician on a mission.
Hybrid musician. or
Hybrid musician.
something.
Hybrid?
Students. Yeah.
Cool. Love it. All right. So let's take a listen. Let's see what we got here with this lead vocal. We're going to roll into it because to me, that's the best way. Listen in context. All right, that sounds pretty good. Let's bring in some of these chops. Yeah, all the wet effects are baked in, and processing is all the processing on the vocals is baked in here, right? So you'll notice that these are pretty tightly dynamically controlled across the board, right? They're not like big buzz saws; they're just like giant sausages. So like we're looking at like solidly controlled dynamics happening here, which makes them easier to place. Also, the fact that they bounce the wet and the wet effects in, right? Reverbs, delays, like pretty easy for me to manage here.
In a way, it kind of sucks that you don't get to do some of that stuff because it's great for the presentation. But the reality is sometimes you get that from clients, and you have to learn how to deal with that. It's a different type of challenge when you get stuff that where it's all baked in. You have less control, so you have to sometimes be a little more clever.
Totally. Gotta use some of the tools in the Swiss Army knife you might not use very often, right? Make the song. Those chops. So good. Where did that come from? Is it in here? Yep. Where's that drop? Tape stop. Bear. It's here. It's here somewhere. Right there. Beer. Beer. That's my impression of a tape stop. Beer.
We have a YouTube video coming out where Jake used one sample and made an entire song out of it. How many tracks?
How many tracks was the production?
Off of one sample?
Oh man, I don't know. I didn't even count the tracks.
Probably like 30, right?
At least
40,
yeah.
30 to 40, all based off of one sample, just tweaking. Yeah, one sample made this entire song. Kick, snare, everything. There was no drums in the sample, actually. He made it work. It's pretty cool. When's that coming out, Jake? Like next week or something?
This week or next, yeah.
Nice.
Probably next week because we're doing this. We're chilling with you guys this week, right?
I was pretty impressed. It was cool.
It's fun.
Also watch out for our new podcast. It's launching tomorrow. We're doing a podcast. We talk with tons of industry professionals, and it's pretty good stuff. So watch for that. It's going to be on all streaming services as well as YouTube if you want the video.
I didn't even know, man. I didn't even know we were launching tomorrow.
Coming out tomorrow. Yep.
That's awesome. That's sweet.
It's an interview with Devon from Help Me Devon.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's called the Reverse Engineer Podcast. It'll be on our YouTube channel. Go and subscribe.
Yep.
Or
So,
wherever
guys-
you get wherever you get your podcasts from.
So guys, just diving back in here, I just wanted to let you know like what my thought process is as I'm kind of chopping this out. There's like a little tape stop that was in the beginning of this harmony, right? I wanted to have independent control of that, so I actually just sliced out the region and put it on its own track, put it on a separate track, and just named it tape stop and grouped it into the sound effects, right? So now I can turn this up and down and just process it independently of everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it up because that was my goal in the first place. That's why I did this. I just wanted to turn it up. Right. And there's also another sound here that's kind of actually getting in the way a little bit of that silence. There, I think it's right there. Yeah, it's a hit. It's a tam hit. I'm actually just going to cut it.
Without the permission.
You know, that's the kind of thing like I wouldn't even really bring up with the producers unless they said something about it. If they were just like, oh man, where's that tambourine? I really like that was really the key thing that really made the song like pop. Like, okay.
Here's
I
a little secret, guys. Here's a little secret. Sometimes you'll mute stuff. Sometimes you'll replace drums. Sometimes you'll do all sorts of stuff, and they'll never know. And don't tell them. Ask for forgiveness later. Be dedicated to good communication up front, and then doing what's best for the song.
Oh.
And if they want to push back, they can push back.
And never tell a drummer you replaced their drums. Not just don't say it. They'll just be like, man, you made my drum sound great. What did you do? I'll just be like, magic, dude.
What they don't know what hurt them. Exactly, Vane.
But
No,
if
they'll usually love it.
they will usually love it.
Your job is to save them from themselves a little bit. They're way too close to it at that point, right?
Exactly.
But if they push back, then you can always, it's easy to put stuff back in.
Yeah. Right. Right. Is that the right call? Versus. Now let's take that tam hit out. Right. Nice little break, nice little breath, and then boom, full band. Right. Cool. Hop back in. Let's keep playing through. And we are still focusing on bringing in these vocal sound effects, guys. All right. Just kind of hopping into some other things along the way. Bring that up a bit. Got some more chops coming up here. Yep. We're gonna go back to that. Where are those halftime drums? That's not that. Claps. Come here. Yep. Cool. Let's check our frequencies. You dummies.
Some sax too from Joseph as well. Trumpet Dad also giving us the sax. By the way, if you've only done a volume mix and your Paz analyzer looks that perfect, there's no EQ on it yet or anything.
Look at
and
you
it looks
smile.
that.
Look at you guys smiling about your
No, it's you. I'm
skills.
complimenting you.
all
That's
across
pretty
the
good.
board. All
That's pretty
across the
good, man.
board.
I was
That's
starting
what you want.
to soak in the compliment, and then Caleb ruined it for me.
Like Dane's head just starts going and then deflates immediately.
And you hadn't looked at the Paz yet. You opened it up and it was already perfect. That's just good instinct, right? And that's
Yeah.
what you want to develop over time. It's one thing to understand the process. It's a whole different thing to have worked hard enough and practiced hard enough that everything becomes instinctual. And in that moment, everything like speeds up the whole. It's like when basketball players talk about the game slowing down. That's when it slows down for the mix engineer.
Getting deep, man. I was just gonna switch the relationship between this sax and the trumpet, panning wise.
You would.
I don't know what that means,
I don't either.
but we're gonna go ahead and do it. Right, so I'm placing the sax over here because that upper mid kind of like honkiness. I just feel like it's a little bit of a better balance. So here's the thought process, right? I've got this long sax, which really draws the ear to the right. The other thing that's in the upper mid range that's drawing the ear is this bridge guitar, and I have this balanced over to the left. See? All right, I've got it panned a little bit to the left. It's drawing, notice how it's drawing the ear over to that side, and then the sax. Right? It balances that out. It balances it out, right? With the sax on the other side, listen. It stacks right on top of it, right? And then the whole mix starts to go like this. You start to lean this way, or I guess my image is mirrored here, so you would start to lean this way, right?
Yeah, I'll put a quick plug in for the shameless plug in for our program. We have literally this entire production process session, everything top to bottom in our program.
Oh, for this song, yeah, we actually showed the entire workflow, of the
Oh, this is
entire
the
production.
song? This
Yeah.
is the song that you documented?
Mhm.
Wow.
We have others as well, but this is one of them.
Wow. Wow. Cool. All right. So does
Well,
that make
there's-
sense, guys? The balance, the panning balance and why, the why behind making that decision? Sense? Yeah. Cool. Following me? Yeah. Sweet.
Can I make one subtle suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a vocal loop, a chopped vocal in the latter half that I just is a little bit hot.
Let's go. Starting from bar 90-ish. You want to just roll?
I think it's one of the percussion ones.
Is this
I know what you're talking about, Caleb. Yeah.
is this around the right spot though?
Yeah, it's in the outro.
Like probably right.
Probably it's one of the breath percussions.
That
Those
one?
are fine. No, those are fine.
This
Breath
one?
perk 2. Breath perk 2 is what it
Breath,
is.
it's breath perk too.
Oh, you don't like that? That's so like early 90s.
Yeah, it's just a little too much.
Because you guys are wearing headphones.
There you go. That's all I have.
Cool. Anything from you, Dane? Attended session.
That was,
Attended session.
that was my same mental note, actually, from like the
Yeah.
very
That's
Cool.
it. You killed it.
Nice, man. We want to kind of like stand this up against a reference.
Yeah.
Sweet. Let's do it.
Someone mentioned gorillas too. I should have looked into that.
I was thinking before earlier on, especially when you're bringing the drums, bass, and a
Yeah.
few of the things in, I was starting to sing "Feels Good, Feel Good" or whatever it is.
The right Gorilla's song. We'll do it.
Good, feel good.
They don't layer as much as you guys do, though.
No,
Yeah.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Warn people before you do that. Warn people before you do such things.
It literally feels like the bad mix is like
The mix of despair from
like
yesterday.
it's like a ghost of Christmas past, like
the
a
Michael
gutted-
mix.
The mix of eternal stench.
That labyrinth.
Yeah, that's for you, Jake.
the mix of despair.
Or goblin voices.
like the pit of despair from Princess Bride.
Yeah. Funny.
Pit of despair.
All right, let's get back to it. I'm not gonna compare it against that. I'm gonna do this
Thank you.
back song instead.
Ugh.
Portugal the Man would have been a better one. So things to kind of keep in mind here, guys, what I'm noticing about the differences between these two tracks. I mean, arrangement wise and sound selection wise, we've got this nice big open kind of sound in the chorus happening with the backtrack. A lot of sparse kind of arrangement happening here in our track. Right. And we've got like all of that high end energy from like higher gain guitars happening here. Right. So like that's the difference between these two tracks. Also, we haven't done any spatial processing. So listen to just like balance. We haven't even done any EQs or compression or anything like that. So like
remind people where they should be observing at this point.
Yeah. At this point, you should be observing balance, basically, right? Volume balance. Where's the vocal sitting? Where are the drums sitting? And this is not a game of precision. This is a game of ballpark because no two mixes are ever going to be, precisely the same, right?
Yep.
So keep that in mind when we're kind of like switching back and forth here. The biggest difference I'm hearing between these two tracks is kick, right? Just like the presence of the kick and the snare. All right, so like you've got these nice big guitars kind of happening and the drums are kind of sunk into them. But in our track, it's very much more like percussion forward, drums forward kind of approach, right? And we can probably pick any other track, to be honest. Like we can pick a Gorillaz track and it'll sound similar, right? The kick will be placed differently. There'll be a different balance there, right? So that's why it's important not to
the best reference.
That's why it's important not to just like pigeonhole yourself into just one single reference and make sure that you're considering kind of like multiple different things. And that's going to create a fence for you and boundaries for you to stay within rather than playing a game of precision, right? Make sense? Are you guys with me here? Yeah, making sense? Everybody making sense? Cool. Cool. What's up, Rob? Visible Rob.
I'm not invisible today.
Inaudible.
Just,
Okay, there you are.
just visible, Rod.
Visible Rob today. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Good. Sounding good.
Good.
Feeling
Feeling
all
good.
the fun stuff.
Yeah. That's okay. You can watch the replay.
Yeah. Do I get lifetime access?
Lifetime access, bro. You can.
Thank
I
you.
think we can make that happen. Caleb, what do you think? Dane says.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Cool. Where do you want to go from here, guys? Caleb?
We didn't really demonstrate volume automation because the vocals are already pretty well automated. We would have done this already probably.
Yeah, totally.
But you could talk about the process and what that would look like.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Usually vocals need more work than this. Vocals take quite a bit of time. These just happen to be ultra processed already. They probably already have volume automation baked in.
Mm-hmm.
But if they weren't, the vocal's such a wild instrument that you usually need some taming. And the key to volume automation is that you're doing things in small steps, right? So instead of just throwing a compressor on there that has to work too hard and you kind of hear that, we're doing multiple layers sometimes of volume automation, small moves, and then the compressor is a small move, or a limiter or something, it's another small move, and nothing is doing too much. Therefore, it's going to sound a lot more natural. And that's what you see the pros doing on this stuff.
Yeah, so basically what you do and what this kind of looks like, and if you just look up like clip gain automation, right, that's totally Googleable or YouTubeable, but you're teasing out regions and turning them up or down to create more consistency and level out the waveform across the track, basically, right? That's a very oversimplified version, if that makes sense, right? Here with these vocals in this specific scenario, I mean, we've got all kinds of effects baked in, time-based effects, right? So if we were to make a bunch of adjustments with clip gain automation on this particular vocal, it's going to mess with the wet effects going up and down and create a little bit more of a disorienting effect for the listener, maybe a little bit more unnatural effect.
It said to me, I can't be alone. I've been saving you, see.
So like if we were to come in here and say, hey, I want these two words to be louder.
I've been saving you.
I've been, right.
I've been saving you, see.
It's actually not too bad. I would pass that.
Underneath my thumb. So go back so slowly. The sacred and holy.
Let's just run through this verse and see if there's any opportunities here.
Yeah, I think there is.
I mean, I think there's opportunity right here,
Yep, the whole
That's-
thing.
you know, to kind of bring that up so it hits any kind of dynamics processing level. Yeah, let's do this. Let's get in here. You guys don't want to see any of this stuff, do you?
Some of the tails of those could be totally turned up as well.
That's exactly what I was going for. Alone, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Oh, you do want to see it. All right. We'll hop in, I guess. Alone, right? A lot of opportunity for some character there. Let's make it happen. Gain.
So the first way he's doing it is with just chopping up regions and using the clip gain feature in Logic there. This is adding a gain plugin and a lane of automation in Logic where you can get a little more fine tuned. So he's just bringing up, for example, the tail of that word.
Yeah, check it out.
Can't be alone.
Alone, right? That breathiness and that character just kind of like pulling that out.
I can't be alone.
It's cool.
This is why the machines won't take over, right? Because as a human, like you have to decide where these tasteful areas are going to be, right?
This is all about emotion. This is all about storytelling. This is very hard for the robots to do. And
Yeah.
it's very hard for compressors to do, which is why we're doing this by hand for the thing that's important right now, that's telling the story, which is the vocal here.
Exactly. That's the point.
I've been saving you to sleep.
I mean, I'm gonna go back to my original example here and prove myself wrong.
I've been saving you to sleep. And you see underneath my thumb. Underneath my thumb.
Underneath my thumb.
Underneath my thumb. Underneath my thumb. So
Cool. Got that all teased out. I'm gonna go ahead and crossfade that.
go back so slowly. The sacred and
Yeah, that lower octave.
Yeah. Da 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 da. The whole phrase.
so go back so slowly. The sacred and holy. Your mouth moves so closely. You know. So go back so slowly. The
I mean, I'll get real detail with them. What? What?
So go back so slowly. The sacred and holy. Your mouth
Sacred sounded like,
Dropped out a bit. Yeah.
yeah.
good and holy. Your
I think that's a gain. Sacred.
sacred and holy.
That's better.
Yeah.
Sacred and holy. Your mouth moves so close.
I hear cat noises.
Where?
It's Rob.
Rob just comes in here and just makes cat noises.
Just to mess
Like
with
trying
you.
to describe. Yeah, trying
Like while the mix is going on. Meow. Make random noises. There's a beep in here. Beep.
Holy. Your mouth moves so closely. You know.
Stop it.
Good and holy. Your mouth moves so closely. You know.
I mean, I want to pull that whole thing up. Where's that bell? Blink, blink, blink. Cool. I don't feel the need to do that.
Maybe
In
check that second verse real quick.
Choruses, yeah, in the choruses, but that second verse,
Second for the choruses sounded fine.
same kind of deal here, right? See what we're looking at.
I've been losing sleep.
Nah, I like breath sounds. Not everybody likes breath sounds, but I like breath sounds, so I'm gonna bring that up,
I've been losing sleep.
especially because it's so rhythmic. Kind of helps with some energy.
I've been losing sleep. But I don't want.
There we go. Let's do some gain right here.
you're not familiar with automation lanes, he's just building a lane into logic that's only affecting the gain knob there. He's drawing it in by hand.
losing sleep, but I've been losing sleep.
And you want this gain knob at the beginning of your chain.
I've been losing sleep, but I don't wanna stop. Stop,
Nice.
wanna stop, but I don't wanna stop. If this is all a dream,
Ma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ma.
a dream.
So you have tons of emotion in that. Like,
Yeah. Great energy.
Tell me when I'm gone. Tell me when I'm
Bring that breath up just a little bit. Not too much. Just 20 decibels.
Tell me when I'm gone. Tell me when I'm gone. Can
Same thing here, man. Plenty of opportunity.
when I'm gone. Can when I'm gone. Can this be the wrong thing? So lovely and
Same thing right here. I'm just gonna pop this up a touch.
can this be the wrong thing? So lovely and haunting. Your taste leaves
Rebalance.
the wrong thing. So lovely and haunting. Your taste thing. So lovely and haunting. Your taste leaves me wanting. I know. Wanting, I know.
What's going on with this?
No. I know.
Sweet.
Do you all hear how much that's helping it sit in the track? Nothing's too loud. Nothing's getting lost. The ends of phrases are coming out. One's in chat if you're hearing that, because that's making a huge difference. Now, tomorrow when he uses compression, if he does on there, it's just further setting it in the track, gluing it.
had this been done, the other thing too is, had this process been done before any processing at all, before any compression, before any limiting or any of that, then these breaths would become even more silky sweet, right? Or these like little nuances would really, the compressor would really kind of complement those things.
That's right.
Yeah. And correct. Big face. All this and no EQ or compression yet. Correct.
That's right.
To be fair, there was plenty of EQ and compression on the tracks themselves, but done pretty quickly
In the production process.
in the
Right.
production process. Just because Caleb and I are mixing, we're also mix engineers, not just producers, so we can bake those things in rather quickly.
Well, what you find, and I mentioned this yesterday, is how connected the entire process is. And this is why it speeds everything up, because we're able to do little things earlier on to capture things better, to produce things better, so that when it gets to mix, it's easier to mix. And then when it gets to master, it's easier to master. And that's how you get those magic tracks sometimes. So it's really just the whole process. Like, you can't fix a bad, take. You can't fix a bad performance. So it has to start at the very beginning. That end in mind perspective starts from the very first time you press record on the very first track. And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, it's the whole point of starting with this idea of mastering first, is because you're realizing that we had to do a crazy amount. I had to do I should say, I had to do a crazy amount of stuff on that mix, that poor mix, right? Whereas if that was handed over to me at a professional level, I'd have to hardly do anything to it. And so that trickles down in reverse. And you're
Yeah, well,
seeing
what-
that. You're seeing that right now. Literally just bringing up these volume faders in the right way is making this sound as good as it is, because it was produced through that lens.
We're
So-
80% of the way there already, and that's how we should be doing it. So strong arm emoji for Jake in chat, if you can find it. Yeah. Good stuff today, Jake.
Jake deserves a robot arm because he's kind of a robot.
It's a beast.
Next tattoo, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Now we want you all to try this. Okay. Doesn't matter where you are with your mix. First thing I want you to do, go back to that mix. You've probably already been writing things down. You got some notes yesterday, hopefully. But I want you to, first thing is just save an alternate version of the project. So no matter what mixing you've done on it, we're starting over. And I want you to do a save as, or in Logic, it's an alternate version of the project. Once you've done that, you have your old version. You can go back to that if you want, but you'll never want to probably. Number 2, remove all processing and plugins. So just start clean slate and then do the process. Bring all faders down to negative infinity. Make sure everything's gain staged, of course. Prep, edit, volume, balance your session to the best of your ability, just like we did today with just volume. Volume and panning only, no plugins allowed for frequencies, dynamics, or space. Nothing, just volume and panning. See how far you can push it. It's a game, right? We're gamifying the process. You're challenging yourself. How close to mix can I make this sound if I'm thinking about things in 3 dimensions of space, finding space for everything, painting in depth, painting in height, painting in width, all of those things together. How close can I get it to something that sounds great? And then feel free to bounce that out if you want to. Share the volume only mix in school, get feedback on it. Again, it's just fun. We're just learning. You don't have to be perfect at this yet. It takes a lot of practice, but this is the right kind of stuff to practice, because this will end up leading to the instincts that I was talking about earlier. And eventually you can do this, much quicker and get things to a much higher level. So feel free to share in the school community and keep connecting there, keep supporting each other. That's it for today, y'all. That's your homework. Tomorrow we dive into EQ compression. We're still going to make this sound better. It's 20%, but it is an important 20% still. It's polish, it's space. We're going to dive into all that tomorrow.
Yep.
Same time,
Gonna be fun.
We'll
same
upload the recording
place.
later this evening, everyone. It'll be ready to go.
Yep.
Cool.
Much love to all of you for showing up, trying to get better. Good job today, Jake. That was masterful work. It's fun watching you work. Thanks
Yeah.
for showing up at the end, Rob, for the fun part. Get better, Dane.
Do what I can.
All right.
Great job. Great job producing those tracks, boys.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, sounds
All
great
right.
already.
We'll see you all tomorrow. Same time, same place.